Okay, here we are, C-Suite Network, Women's Coaching and Consulting Council. Hey, we get to invite the gents to come and join us today. Generous, enthusiastic, noble, and tenacious. Thank you to you. Thank you to you, Jerron, and also to all of the people, all the wonderful people watching our replay. So, in typical form, we always do a very, very quick wrap up of our previous programs because our council members, we love to promote you, showcase you, and highlight you before, during, and after your program. But we get in and we get out on these programs. We're very efficient with our time. I'm Kathleen Caldwell, founder of C-Suite Network's Women's Coaching and Consulting Council. I've been a coach for, golly, I think now about 25 years. I'm celebrating an anniversary here soon. And I love being a coach consultant. My background is in tech, spent many decades in tech with 3 startups that went public, and just love the whole space of coaching, consulting, being helpful, and really helping other people rise and shine in their work and in their lives. And to do a very quick recap, Deb Creer talked about turning adversity into change and also communities. She's very vocal about on her podcast, the Business Power Hour with C-Suite Network Radio, about her journey with cancer. And so she's turning this adversity, these challenges, my goodness, all of the surgeries she's had all of her journey into a movement called Try Not to Die.live. So big shout out to Deb. We also last week did a 4-day corporate coaching challenge that was marvelous. Oh my goodness, very, very well attended. Really great because corporate coaching, teams, and leadership is just very, very hot as always. So be sure to check out the replays on our YouTube channel. And of course, Carol Kammer did a program on LinkedIn, was excellent. We talked about how to increase your income as a coach consultant, challenges, how to become the category of one. Liz Luckett did a great program on amplifying your voice, getting your voice out into the world to be not only seen, but also heard. Sheila Anderson, Kathy Dirksen on reinvention strategies was really great. And of course, our very own esteemed faculty member, Christina DiGiacomo, about unlocking the power of AI, specifically for coaches and consultants who are trailblazers. And we know you're a trailblazer. Gloria St. Martin Lowry, talking about how to build advocates and allies in corporate accounts. And of course, Sheila Anderson, Perseverance. That is her middle name, isn't it, folks? She is fantastic. So the theme of our program today, and we're just getting started here, is how do we find ways to work better together? Men and women and all of the genders, all of the diversity, all of the age groups, everybody out there. And because we know sometimes, this is a horrible graphic, but I just had to grab it, is how many of you played dodgeball in high school, grade school, middle school, dodgeball? Am I the only one that played dodgeball?
No.
Okay, maybe this is a Midwesternism. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You, that little ball and that you throw it at people on the other side. Well, in my school, O'Donnell Middle School in Aurora, Illinois, girls saw dodgeball as kind of just a free-for-all kind of silly thing. We're just going to throw the ball to each other. Boys, I know when we did boys against girls in dodgeball, the boys thought it was a war. And so it was very challenging. And I know this little meme is so kind of cute. I just wanted to pull this up for you. Hey, hey, we're going to play paintball. How many of you played paintball as an adult?
Okay.
Oh my gosh. One of my managers in a tech company many years ago decided it was a very good idea for us to go on a team building event, a retreat with paintball, and it was boys against the girls. Well, let me tell you, I still have the bruise on my leg to tell you it was not a fun experience. And so sometimes I think business feels that way, that it's boys against the girls. And it's not necessarily anger or war or whatever, but it just sometimes seems that the women are on one side, the guys are on the other. And how can we come better together? And so I think sometimes from men's perspective is trying to come into a woman's environment is got to be equally hard because we're all like sisters, we're gathered up, we have our little circles. And how does a man break into the women's circles? Hence the Women's Coaching and Consulting Council. So I wanted to get a conversation started about creating an alliance, working better together, and really supporting the generous, enthusiastic, noble, and tenacious men in the world, people who identify as men, okay, and bring all of their attributes, bring everything who they are, and be able to make the pie even bigger for us in business. And guess what? Bake even more pies. Okay. So, my question to you is I really am coming from the premise of when we work together, everybody wins. And so I'm curious about your experiences in, maybe growing up in college and high school, whatever it is in business. How is it when men and women work together or maybe work separately in their own little corners, so to speak? What has been your experience? So jump in. Yeah, Phyllis, thank you.
I always have a lot. I mean, from the very beginning, I have always worked with boys, played sports with boys. We would play punch ball outside. I mean, yeah, and things like that. I've always had good relationships with boys and men. And so it was just natural to me. When I was applying to high schools, I grew up in Manhattan in a great neighborhood, which is why I come from this. There are special schools and you have to take exams. And I chose to go to Bronx Science because it was co-ed. And I also got into Hunter, like two of the best schools. But I didn't, it was right before it changed to go co-ed. And Stuyvesant was a boys' school at that time. And so I didn't want to just go to a girls' school, and I had no interest whatsoever in science. Of course, I had to take, all the sciences because there was no choice. But I just didn't want to, and I have plenty of girlfriends. I always have, and
Yeah.
it's not that I have anything against girls, but it's just something that felt natural to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I want other people to feel that way. And I'm
Great.
also want to, say something about, you said that you want to get into this group and discussion, men who identify as men.
Yeah.
But why can't we have, people who look like men, whether they're gay or they're any other various things? Why would we exclude them?
Absolutely. Thank you, Phyllis. Yes. Yes.
Make everybody feel comfortable.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that's part of this discussion is just to get the discussion going. So it's not always girls on one side, boys on the other, and I went to a women's Catholic college. So early on, it was like all just the girls, so we're coming from our own perspective. Christina, Giron, share. What is
So
your experience with girls versus boys, business, life, all that? Yeah.
So the first thing I have to say is with the dodgeball image, I was definitely like out for blood. Like I was I was on the battlefield every day. So that's what I find. So it's just such a great like conversation starter, right? Because that particular meme makes you think like, you know, and there like makes you think like, oh, interesting. Like I kind of looked at that game not in the way the meme is presented. So, you know, it's interesting. I mean, I have like a 25-year career in all different kinds of working environments. And all in sort of male dominated fields as well, somehow like found, and it was not a choice. It was just like, this is just what I'm interested in. And this is what I think is kind of cool. And I have to say, when I was genuinely myself about what I liked and what I thought was cool, there was just this really great camaraderie. But the second, you know, like maybe I would change jobs or I would be in a different environment with a different group of men, and I get that kind of anxiety, like, oh, I want to fit in, you know, and I try to be like them, or I try to fit in, it was immediately noticeable. And so for me, I go by this sort of philosophy, like Mary Wollstonecraft said, the mind has no gender. And so for me, I try to kind of dissolve my my identification, and just put my being and like my knowledge forward for engagement and interaction. And I've been just able to be in these spaces, very male dominated spaces, and feel 100% comfortable and 100% like validated, as well. And so that, you know, I think, and I think that goes both ways. Like, you know, if someone is finds themselves in a space that's you know, majority of a different gender or a different identification, it really is about like, who are you putting forth? It's not your identification, it's your being. And I think that's the secret.
Love it. Love it. Love it. And also spoken from a person, Christina, you have your GENT mastermind, and you gather gents together and fellows, and you're in that world. You've cultivated that world. And Jeroen, is that how we properly pronounce your name?
It's pronounced Jeroen. So I tried to put it in my Zoom description.
Jeroen.
As close as possible. If you can roll the R, that's perfect, but like, I don't expect anyone to do that. I love what Christina said about being, because ultimately I'm doing a lot of change leadership work and conscious leadership, conscious transformation, and that's all about integral coaching, which I recently added to my skill set. And I love integral coaching because it's all about ways of being, and about shifting a way of being, and how in a certain context we may not have access to certain skills or talents that we do have in other contexts. So it's like exploring that and helping people with that. And in the context of male versus female, and any genders that people may identify with, like, first of all, throughout my career, I've had more female managers and bosses. I don't like the word boss, but than male. I started doing an internship like 20 plus years ago in a shared services center that was 80% women. So I was the one that was in an industry that wasn't super traditionally like very populated with men. And then later, like now we're 20 years further, now I'm doing organizational change, and that also has traditionally had more women in it than men. But in between, I've been in a lot of tech roles, and even in my first tech job, I worked with a lot of consultants, and there was a very good balance between number of men and women just naturally, and that was never a topic. Actually, we were just collaborating, and I think the fact that there was a balance made it go very well. We didn't really think about it as much, but in hindsight, that balance was there naturally. And I feel if we go back to the ways of being, and there's a lot of pieces that are on the surface, the way we look, the way we identify, or the way we want to look, and that's not unimportant, but where the common ground is beneath the surface. And that's why I love doing the conscious leadership work, the integral coaching, because it's about looking below the surface, the underlying currents, the human dynamics, the things people struggle with. And that's where there's lots of struggles that male and female, men and women are dealing with. And we often see when we look at personality tests, for example, oh, this is something that's more common with men or more common with women. It doesn't mean much, right? There's also personality tests that label people as like what's the word when you're more it's used very often, but
introverted versus extroverted.
Introverted.
You mean?
Wow,
Yes.
thank you very much.
Yes,
So
yes,
introverted, extroverted. It's a few percentages difference in what's your leading one versus so it all depends on the context. And just like, and I don't want to go there, but like if we look at men versus female or political preferences, etc., people are much more similar than they think they are. It's about important topics that they may differ opinions, but there's so many things that people find important that cross those lines. That's all beneath the surface. And if we start looking at that, and here the context is man, women, but if we look at it from that perspective and treat each other like humans and have a conversation with people where we acknowledge that everyone, even if we don't know the details, everyone has struggles, big or smaller, everyone has trauma, everyone has all kinds of stuff going on. So let's just treat each other as humans and not as robots. In an AI world, it's even more important that we as humans treat each other with respect and with empathy, and that we can navigate those technology like challenges together. But it's all about the human dynamics. So I'm very glad we have this conversation, and it can be expanded, of course, beyond the GENT topic.
Excellent. Thank you.
What he just said shifts with time and what's important in people's lives. You know, politically, you look at that and you look at the polls over time, you know, even from last year to now, or 2 months ago to now, it shifts. And what is most important is going to shift. It may have to do with where they are in their life cycle, you know, whether it's age or other things that are affecting that. And so, you know, we never should think that it's a permanent thing, even if you're able with an assessment or what people are proclaiming for themselves at a particular time.
Yes, yes. Well, yes, and we have done a program about masculine and feminine negotiation, and that we all, you know, as human beings, we have both attributes, and one generally doesn't denote female, one male. So we've certainly gone into that. So, you know, to kind of, you know, maybe take it into some tactical things, what are your thoughts about reaching out, you know, consciously saying, hey, you know, I want to reach out to someone of another gender or someone of another race or someone, you know, we're talking about the GENT Alliance, but actively, I think our council can actively reach out and connect with more humans that identify as men to bring that kind of bigger spectrum. What are your thoughts about? Seems pretty easy, doesn't it? I think, you know, I'm hoping our council can be the catalyst for having that happen more. But what, you know, curious, what kind of gets in the way? What do you see as gets in the way of women reaching out and initiating a conversation about, hey, how do we work better together? Or how do we work together?
So,
Yep.
oh,
Christine,
sorry.
jump
I
in.
didn't
Yeah,
realize Phyllis
jump in
had her.
because you got to jump off. Yeah.
Oh, I do have to jump off.
Yeah.
So this is just what I've observed. So this is completely anecdotal, completely subjective.
Yeah.
Where I feel that women have ensconced themselves into or have created an idea that women only spaces are the only spaces that that they should be participating in. And to some extent, I absolutely see the value of a space dedicated, for women. But what I've seen tends to happen in the conversations that I've observed and just kind of going into these different spaces is there seems to then be this kind of false sense of like, this is the only way to do it. And I've been through maybe 4 male business partners. And every single experience has been a wonderful experience. The only reason why it ended was for a business reason. It wasn't for a gender reason, or it wasn't, so I've actively sought out partnerships with men, but I don't see women actively doing that. And perhaps it's because they're so embedded in these sort of women only experiences that the thought probably just doesn't occur to them. And that's completely, like, I think that's the case. But I also feel that there might be some trepidation in having a partnership with a man or of someone of a different gender, just because there's like a certain comfort and security and like safety. It's like, oh, okay, I know how to work with women. I've kind of seen it all, so it's a comfort zone thing too.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that's just that's what I have to
Yes.
offer.
Yes. Yaron, share with us your, as a consultant coach, what do you see in your role now with your business about, women coaches and consultants in groups and male groups? I don't really see any sort of men's coaching council. Like to see that, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, I'm in some groups like conscious leadership groups, and like and there, for example, I was in the Association of Change Management Professionals, a chapter of New York, which I co-founded, and there was a mix. There's more women now than men, but it was a good balance. I feel like there's a lot of in general, there's a lot of assumptions about what women and what men bring to the table,
Yes.
and I'm not sure those assumptions are always accurate. But
Yeah.
this is the starting point of any relationship, whether it's between a man and a woman or different people. I learned that if we don't set clear boundaries at the beginning, if we don't co-creatively define or conditions for success. What is success? What does it look like? What does it not look like? We hear so many things, and I've worked a lot in the change world after my tech experience. People are like, oh, this percentage of change projects fail. That's everyone loves to use that, but everyone who loves
Yes.
to use that has been involved in those same projects for such a long time. So I'm curious what the value of it is, other than trying to sell their services to promise that they're the one who's going to solve it. But it's just this. I think that's more of the dynamic of like, what is it that each and every one can bring to the table, and define those boundaries and empower the other person, whoever is in charge or is not in charge, to take up that role. For example, and that's maybe one more thing that I've observed. That was my personal feeling, and I may be wrong. Most of my collaborations with women have been very good. There's been a few instances where I love like taking several steps ahead and integrating. And I realized that that can create some overwhelm, not only in me but in others. And that's not just to women, to men, but I feel like sometimes there may be the perception that as I'm trying to get involved and really impassioned about what I do, that I'm trying to take control, which is not, which may be something that people associate with the male persona. And that's sometimes correct, but sometimes it's not. In my case, it was really this desire to help and
Yeah.
never to take away, to help optimize the process, but not take the control. I was actually explicitly not trying to take it. But so that's an example that can work in both directions, but it's that those kind of dynamics that need to be put on the table, and assumptions are okay as long as we discuss them and not keep them for ourselves and work them.
Excellent points. Oh my gosh, great, great. Thank you, thank you. Phyllis, jumping in, yeah.
So I have an example sitting here right at the table, which I'll say in a minute. But first, I want to say about the challenges we were talking about before. Two things. First of all, societal pressures. And, you know, for men to be more aggressive and all of that, and for women to be, you know, how women have been for many years expected to be. The other thing is the Me Too movement and psychological safety also, but that's for everybody. But I think that there was greater fears about women, especially, or on the part of women, especially when women started to tell their stories, you know, about depending on how aggressive that, you know, what the behavior was. The other, so sitting here at the table, Hiron and I, we met at a New York mixer several months ago. And we had a great conversation, screaming over all the noise, because there are a lot of people there and it's very noisy. And so then we started talking, you know, mostly on Zoom, but wanting to get together in person. And it was actually me who said to him, isn't this correct? You know, why don't we start to meet regularly one way or another and see what it is that we can do together?
Yes, absolutely.
And the other thing is, what he said about himself, he gets enthusiastic, I get enthusiastic. I mean, I've done it right here. So we're both having a lot to say, and it's happening from both of us, I think. And so we're kind of understanding about the other one, you know. We're not trying to be aggressive, and we're not trying to shut the other one down or dominate. It just is how we are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you mentioned psychological safety, right? And it goes that's also something that in organizations and any group, as soon as we're more than two people, we can talk about the culture. And psychological safety in so many organizations, it's the kind of stuff that they write on the wall, and they write in all their trainings that people need to take. As a consultant, I've been in many of those trainings, and I love reading what I read, but it's always shocking to see how the reality is not that. And I feel that if there's an organizational culture of safety, true safety, where people are encouraged to try and to speak up and don't get punished for that, if they do it, of course, in a normal way. I mean, we talked about way of being. I think the way of being, the way we show up is an important way. The way we convey something is very important. I've made my mistakes throughout my career from that perspective, where the content was what I wanted to say, the way it came across, the way I brought it was not. But that is like a very important working point that's like that goes both ways, because there's men with challenges, men with anxiety. I have anxiety. Like, I mean, many people have all kinds of stuff going on, but where both parties may not be willing to speak up, and it doesn't have to be in so much depth on the work floor, right? But just being able to be transparent, sharing that something that you tried failed, and getting each other's support from that kind of safety, that can bring us very far. And also cross gender, cross generation, cross there's so many different groups. And I strongly believe in, that's a different factor, and we don't have to explore that here, but there's levels. I talk about conscious leadership. I don't want to just talk about it. It's about something that the way we live, but there's different levels of consciousness in people, and that has a big impact on how people react and how they can put themselves in the shoes of others, how they can meet people where they're at. That's a lifelong journey also for me. But that is beyond the gender or the generation lines. That's where we can find this common ground to, like, hey, you're struggling with stuff, I struggle with stuff. Why don't we, even mentoring, reverse mentoring is becoming more popular. It's not fully ingrained yet, but like it's great. It's like it's learning to listen to each other and then do something with it rather than listen to react. I mean, we've all seen those classes. We've all heard that advice, and we all try, but we can't remind ourselves enough to be better active listeners. Like Phyllis just said it nicely. We're both enthusiastic. We like to share our stuff and listen to each other, but it's good to create some space in ourselves and within a conversation, just to allow people to digest something or to reflect. Just a few seconds of silence is often met with discomfort and someone feeling the need to speak up. I do that too. But what if we would just leave a few minutes space before drawing conclusions and seeing what the vibe is, and allow others to digest and respond rather than react.
How about if we do that for a moment? Could we do that for a moment?
Mm-hmm. Take a deep breath.
Why don't you lead us in that, Jeroen? Jeroen, yes. Lead us in an exercise like that. Because we're, yeah. I was thinking we would wrap up. That was my plan. Wrap up, share what's next, and then use this as like just the first of many sessions to get the conversation going. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have a sense of what could be next in our dialogue or process, taking a deep breath and processing?
Well, I think it would be good to have a few extra. It's not about the number of people, but to create some visibility on the kind of conversation that we're having here. And I'd love to lead some of these, like, more like, I mean, something 1 minute pause is great. Like in some groups we do like several minutes of more like intense breathing exercises. That's not something we always need to do, but it can be something that we start doing, so people have something to do offline practices with. Because it's like with many other things, if we practice them offline, as in, when we're not, in this case, when we're not in a call, or when we're not doing some sports competition or whatever it is, it is in those moments before going live with something that we need to practice, right? If I want to recognize in myself that I'm feeling anxiety, or that I'm starting to feel angry in a certain conversation, sometimes it's very hard to notice, or easy to notice, but the feeling has already taken over, rather than recognize, like, oh, it's coming up, I need to pause, let me take a deep breath, or in some cases, even ask the conversation partner, disclose or not disclose, but say like, I need some more time. I'd love to reflect on this. Can we have this conversation, continue this conversation later today or next week or et cetera, et cetera. So it's about bringing this, the hindsight is 2020. I always like to look at it like this is the current moment. This is the hindsight. How can we bring the time between the hindsight and the current moment together so that we can see things in real time? And that's so much easier to say than to do. But that goes back to that way of being and consciously working on becoming more conscious, building on what Christina said at the very beginning about ways of being. I think there's a lot to explore there, and we can wave in the masculine, feminine, but also I don't know, Phyllis is the expert there, like in intergenerational topics. But it's really like, what is that common ground and where is the uniqueness, and respect, acknowledge that uniqueness. And in this kind of exercises, also with breathing, I love to say, bring your own content. Like, I mean, there's people with different levels of consciousness, different levels of training in the space. We want to be very welcoming for everyone and make sure everyone gets some value out of it. And sometimes it's just good to be with each other and to find some common ground with people, and then take that offline, or just make a breakout room about a specific topic, depending on how many people join. I know the C-Suite network does a lot of breakout rooms in many of these sessions, so that's not something new. But we can play it by ear, right? It depends on how many people are there, depends on the topics. But let's and I know I've done a lot of talking, but we can practice that pause and maybe build that in here, like if it's an hour call, every 15 minutes, be like, hey guys, unless there's a moment where we feel like this is the moment, let's do it. We can also build it into the structure and remind ourselves as a first step of practice to pause. And then, because we're very much into, and there's a lot of successful people in the C-Suite network and friends of the C-Suite network, and many are all about, have the drive to achieve, to accomplish, and to do more. And that's great. We just want to make sure that we do that in congruency with who we are and who we want to be, because otherwise there's going to be anxiety and stress and all kinds of health challenges that are probably not worth all the other success. We want to make sure that it goes in alignment, and that the alignment piece is something that I'm exploring and working on in my coaching business and consulting business, within and between people and between groups. And it's something we can always test here, right? What are our conditions for success today? What are the boundary conditions? We can do even and I'll stop there. Maybe we can do a simulation of a situation, a masculine, feminine, like a dynamic, being mindful of course stereotypes.
Sure, of course.
And just maybe like replicate a situation someone's been in, and see how on both sides we could enhance in the next round a better mutual understanding and collaboration. So something like that, like that's what comes up as we paused a few seconds, and then I started talking for a few minutes.
Excellent. Great. Yeah, thank you. Phyllis, you were jumping in as well.
Well, I agree 100% with what Heron said. I have a couple of ideas about what we can talk about in future sessions. And you were asking about tactical things. Yeah. And one of the problems is not only people, whether it's exuberance or just because they want to dominate, whether it's one gender or another or whatever difference. But there's also the other side of it. And a lot of people are afraid to speak up or don't know how to, which is another thing that I deal with a lot. So I would be happy to start that discussion about some tactics and some ways of thinking about those things.
Excellent. Excellent. Great. Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, as we complete our time, what a gorgeous conversation. What a fabulous conversation. Thank you to the two of you. And thank you to Christina and to everyone watching our replay. I think every initiative, every inspiration, you have to start. So that's what we're doing today, is just starting. We don't know where it'll go, but it's important that you helped us start. So thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. It's
Well,
glad to be here with you both.
Thank you
and
very much.
three of
Yeah.
you.
great. Thank you for coming and try to get some
Yeah.
more to come.
We'll do it again. Yeah.
How often are you planning on or thinking on having these gatherings?
I was thinking like every other month or something, maybe once a quarter when I'd like to do this session again and give everyone more time to plan in their schedule and to kind of put together a little bit more of an agenda and to have everyone be able to bring in their voice, because we have we have very powerful people, as you said, Jeroen, in C-Suite Network and beyond. And I think this is untapped potential for us, is working better together, consciously working better together, instead of being a solopreneur all the time, working and, roughing it out, playing dodgeball on our side of the street, so to speak. But let's come together and let's create even more opportunities that prosper and benefit more people. Yeah, as I often say in our council, there are 8 billion people on the planet. So as coaches and consultants, we have a lot of opportunity, and we got to get really busy here. So there's a lot for everyone. So yeah, yes. So let's complete. And we always share at the very end. First of all, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for being here, sharing your voices. And we'll do another session in October or November. We'll get it on the calendar and giving us a lot of time to prepare and reflect. And maybe there'll be even a little call to action kind of thing in advance. To come to the event with some more thoughts and maybe targeted, focused things. So yeah, there we go. So the whole theme is, how do we work better together? And on Saturdays we have our Saturday morning Women's Success Circle. Okay, it's a very powerful circle. You're invited to join us. And of course, on October 3rd, we get this great privilege to feature Trisha Ben, Ask the CEO, and it's going to be an incredible program. We get to bring our questions to her. Trisha has extensive, incredible experience as an executive in tech as well as telecommunications. She is incredible. So we get to hear from her. So with that, thank you for being here, investing your time, and we'll complete our program. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. We'll see you around the C-Suite Network campus and beyond. Take care. Bye-bye.
I won't see you on Saturday because I'm on a wine tour.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Normally I'm there.
Excuse.
Okay. All righty. Thank you. Bye. We'll see you soon. Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.